Hello and welcome to Exceptional Undergrads, a podcast where we identify young adults who have achieved exceptional levels of success at a young age. My name is Jack, and it is my job to explore their tools, actions, and habits to provide practical advice for you to use on your journey to becoming successful. I believe that it is within the capabilities of any young adult to achieve exceptional success at a young age. All key points and any resources mentioned in today's episode will be uploaded to our show notes page on our website. Now let's jump in and learn some practical advice from the dorm room next door. Today I welcome Zachary Williams to the show. Zach is a current undergrad at High Point University studying international business with a minor in Spanish. Zach has put together quite the resume for himself over the past few years. Aside from starting 3 of his own companies and working as a seasonal sales and delivery advisor for Tesla Motors, Zach has held positions at some of the top golf clubs across the United States, including Sedgefield Country Club in North Carolina, home of the Wyndham Championship, Augusta National Golf Club, home of the Masters, and Eastlake Golf Club, home of the PGA Tour Championship. In this episode, I had the opportunity to explore part of Zach's entrepreneurship journey, his mindset towards scoring great internships and getting incrementally better every day, as well as how he overcame his fear of failure, and much, much more. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Zach Williams. Zach Williams, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. How are you doing, Jack?
Doing fantastic. I'm excited to have you here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've accomplished so far?
Absolutely, Jack. Well, thank you for having me today. For those who don't know me, my name is Zach Williams, originally from Miami, Florida, but I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. In regards to work, I've had 3 of my own companies over the last 9 years, doing a variety from making my own soap, selling in my local area, to high-end sports equipment and high-end shoes. I'm a big golfer, so in regards to that, spent time in the member shop down at Augusta for the 2023 Masters. I was a PGA intern at Eastlake Golf Club in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to be a PGA intern out at Sedgefield Country Club this coming summer in Columbus, Ohio. I am currently on staff at Greensboro Country Club in the golf shop, and then I was outside staff at Sedgefield Country Club for a little while. I also did sales at Tesla Motors, and then for a brief little while, I worked for a executive coaching firm, my mom's coaching firm, Unleash Potential, as an intern. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you what, all of this was, didn't you just turn 20 a little bit ago, too?
I did, a few weeks ago.
So all of that before 20 years old.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
I love all the different stuff. Love to hear stories on a bunch of those things, but I really want to dive in off the bat into some of your entrepreneurship stories that you've got. You said you started multiple businesses from 9 years? I think you said you've been working on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also noticed as well from talking with you beforehand, you had this thing called ZW gloves. I want to hear about this. I want to hear about a bunch of different stuff, and I think we start off with some of the soap stuff that you were talking about. What's that called? Home Run Sense, I think.
Yeah.
Let's dive in there and just
Wow.
walk through the Zach Williams story.
Wow, Jack did his research.
I did.
So starting at I was probably 9 or 10, I started making soap and selling it in my local area. Made $210, so I was the richest man in the world at age 9. That's a good bit of change. Right around 13, I got really, really into shoes. Started reselling shoes. Actually just put a halt on that company back in February, so I did that for about 7.5 years. Did shoes, streetwear, so like Supreme, Bape, and then all sorts of Jordans and high-end shoes of that nature. Right around that same time, I was playing sports. I was really big into baseball, so I started a company called ZW Gloves, the one that I still run. Now we do all forms of high-end sports equipment, so moving more towards golf. It's more so what do I play and what can I provide. So the premise of my company is, can I provide confidence on the course? That's what we do now. But started with, can I provide confidence on the field through look good, feel good, play good? So providing professional quality equipment at the little bit more reasonable price point while still making a profit. So yeah, ZW Gloves is where we started. I know, Jack, you used to have a glove account.
I did. I did. It's no longer active.
Oh, man.
But that was a fun time. I also, around my senior year of high school, I think it was, I always loved gloves, and I always told myself, man, I just want to buy a whole bunch of them. And I got a more high-end one and a few other ones, and I started my own glove account, which on Instagram, if you guys didn't know or you weren't into baseball and baseball gloves at the time, it's basically a community of people who post pictures of the gloves that they have and try to collect a bunch of different rare pro issue or cool gloves like that. I never got my hands on any of the super pro issue ones like Zach might have, but I had a couple cool gloves. I did post them, got a few followers. It was a fun time.
It was a blast. I think probably made around 100 sales with the gloves. But at one point, I think in my collection, I probably had 20, 25 gloves.
Awesome. All right, well, let's move back a little bit right now.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you about how you were able to secure some of these internships, really just the back end stuff of really just building a network and what keys you would say to have to really build relationships with people to get you these super cool opportunities that you've been able to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest part of that is being open, being vulnerable. There's always be respectful. That is a big thing with me. But in regards to getting those internships, as you'd mentioned, using your network is important, no matter the field you're going into. The dream for me is to become a golf professional. I love the sport. I love growth within the sport for myself, for those who I help, those who I coach. But no matter the field, whether it's sales, whether it's nursing, whether it's, you're a dentist, using your network that you build through being social, meeting people, that isn't going to hurt you. It's going to help you. And learning how to use that to help your career is probably one of the most important things a young undergrad like us, even postgraduates, can do to help further themselves. Because the worst thing you can hear is no. Especially when going after a job, the worst thing you can do is not reach out. And the worst thing you can do, like as we'd mentioned, is not reach out and not go after that. And you leave that opportunity on the table. And for me, that's just, I would never want to do that. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
What would you say has been your biggest motivator to just go after the things that you really want?
And I don't mean this in a bleak way, but I only got so much time on this beautiful earth. I think taking advantage of what limited time we do have. I have big goals. I have big dreams for what I want to accomplish. I think that's been a massive motivator that helps get me up in the morning, is saying I've been blessed to have the opportunities that I have, but there's still a lot of work that needs to get done to go where I want to go. So being able to look forward and say, wow, there's been a lot of great stuff that in the past, but being able to say, hey, that's awesome. And then, yeah, as I said, look forward and go, there's so much that I can still achieve. There's so much I can still do as I push myself.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I think for myself in particular, I've got a bunch of different goals that I want to achieve. In fact, it's actually interesting because I'm starting to reframe my mindset on goals. I used to set a crazy amount of goals of things that I wanted to do. But now I've switched my mindset to only have a few goals that are bigger, a little more long term, to really make sure that I'm working on something that's important to me daily and not losing sight of the bigger picture and the future thinking aspect of my life. I used to set goals for just crazy things that I'd have, and it was like, I don't know the exact example, but it'd be some like insane amount of money that I wanted to make by the end of the year, and I don't have a job, or I don't know necessarily a lot of the stuff that I can do, and I don't have the skills to back up some of the stuff, and things would just fall flat. A good example of this for me, not monetarily, but my junior year of high school, I decided I wanted to start a podcast, and I was totally all in on this podcast, and it was super cool. I found the clip of the intro, the trailer, which the people who are watching and remember one of the episodes that I released a while ago, by the time you're watching this. I think it was with Ashley Longbottom, if I remember correctly. I mentioned in that episode how I started this podcast and I was totally all in on the stuff, and it was fantastic and I loved it so much. That audio clip that I said might be out there, I found it, and it sounded like I recorded the podcast on a potato, and it was about like 20 seconds or so long, and I had no idea what I was doing. I promptly gave up on that pretty quickly. I also announced it to everybody, so it was not a great look. But I think having goals and keeping them to yourself and kind of having a few things that really motivate you and drive you without letting anybody else know much of the stuff, I think that's massive to being able to achieve these goals.
I agree completely. And I don't think there's an issue with setting super high goals. I think if you aim high and come up just short, you're still, you aim high, you come up just short, you're still very high up on the totem pole. But also, and what you said was very valuable. Don't overextend yourself by setting a million goals. Set a few major goals, and within those major goals, you can have little minor sub goals. But if you set too many, you're gonna overextend yourself. You're gonna overdo it, and you're gonna stress yourself out. You're not gonna have any energy left to achieve that, and you're really not gonna go anywhere. And the end with that, and the goal with these is to make sure you push yourself forward. Is that forward progress? That's a big thing for me. You don't want to make backwards. You don't want to move backwards. There's some situations where you need to take a step back to move 2 steps forward. But in most situations in life, I believe forward progress is the goal. I have a sign in my room that I've blanked on the phrasing now, but it's, did you make forward progress towards your goals today? And before I leave my room every morning, I make sure to read that to myself. And, I think that could be a valuable thing for the listeners is, did you make forward progress towards your goals every day? 2% progress every day towards those goals can get you there really quickly.
I think with setting goals, how I've learned to set more goals, or set better goals, I should say, is setting realistically unrealistic goals. So they're goals that, yes, they push you outside of your comfort zone and they're challenging for you to achieve, but they're things that you can actually achieve. Because time and time again, I've set myself crazy goals, which I like that. I think that setting yourself crazy goals by longer periods of time makes sense. When you broaden you shrink the period of time that you're saying that you'd achieve this goal by, then it can put stress and almost make everything be super unrealistic for yourself. And then you just get depressed because you didn't set this goal. It's another goal that you set for yourself, and then you didn't achieve it. So I think being able to set yourself realistically unrealistic goals, which it sounds odd because it's like realistically unrealistic. But whenever you just break it down, realistic goals that push yourself out of the comfort zone, that you can achieve within a good amount of time based on the skill level that you have, the skills that you're going to require to achieve this goal. And even if you fall short on those ones, like you said, you still made it so that you're really close to the top, but you might not have hit it, but you still have to look at, oh yeah, I've also made all of this progress. It's like whenever I think about lifting weights, I'm big into lifting weights nowadays. I've been lifting now for like 2 years or so, which has seen massive growth, which is hilarious. But whenever you think about going for a PR, like a personal best on bench press or something like that, and you come up short on your lift and you like maybe didn't hit whatever you wanted to do, but you just beforehand hit like 10 pounds less, you have to think about from whenever you started, whenever that was, oh, I actually have increased the weight like 20 times more than I did whenever I first started. And sometimes we lose sight of that because it's so important for us to achieve this next goal that we lose sight and we lose the perspective of, oh, I've actually done some really cool stuff since the last time I tried to achieve something. And I think that it really speaks on the journey that it takes to achieve a goal rather than just the end goal. What a friend of mine who his actual episode will be out coming soon. It'll be out before this one goes out as well. Quentin, in the episode, he mentions how he doesn't set goals anymore. He just sets milestones, which I found very interesting because whenever you hit a milestone, whenever you hit a goal, there's a sense of, oh, like I've achieved this and it's over. But whenever you hit a milestone, you still have more left in the tank. This is just a stop, a little pause. You can celebrate this pause and use it as motivation to achieve more. And that's something that I'm trying to rework with myself when it comes to goal setting, is maybe having a full-fledged goal that's out there, but then also setting milestones to basically keep myself in check. So rather than having me working with my head down the entire time, I can have things that I've now achieved per se because I've hit these certain milestones rather than an entire goal.
Absolutely. I think you have a phenomenal point with that, and you kind of brought back some funny memories in that regard. So, what feels like a lifetime ago, I used to compete in powerlifting. And, it isn't a woe is me story, but, probably 3 years ago now, I went through some pretty severe knee injuries and back injuries due to some sports I was playing. And I had to step away for 2 years from lifting. And I was lifting big weights when I was doing powerlifting. I mean, I maxed out with I think I maxed my bench at 330 and some like really, really big lifts. And I recently started getting back in the gym over the last 6 months, and I'm struggling for at 225. And, we talk about marginal progress and continuing every day to go at it. And I took a moment to realize, wow, I did not appreciate in the moment how far I'd gone. Because when I was lifting these massive weights, I said, oh man, why can't I do the next level? Why can't I push myself harder? I was very difficult on myself, because that's what you do as an athlete, is when you compete. But now I sit back and realize, wow, as what you said, with Quentin said, if you just set these milestones now that I'm getting back into lifting more so for myself, for that kind of physique instead of just for power, setting those milestones instead of, I don't think, for me, I think goals are important, but setting those different, like, hey, let's reach, by the end of the month, let's reach 235 for 2 reps. Setting those milestones for yourself is not a bad thing, and it gives you something to push towards during the month, during your day. If you set little milestones during the day, during the year for bigger milestones, set your goals. And I think that's a big thing.
I've started making to-do lists for myself before the day, every night before I go to sleep for the next day. And that really locks me in and makes sure every single day that I know exactly what I'm going to do so I can accomplish these things. It gives me a sense of task and accomplishment as well, where I know I'm going to do this. I do that, and then I get to check it off at the end of the night and go through the stuff and say to myself, okay, like I accomplished this, I won today. I think whenever you win days, it's the saying, whenever you win days, you start to win weeks. When you win weeks, then you win months. And when you start winning months, then you start winning years. And that's how you make serious progress in a lot of your goals. I think by just breaking it down to a simple, how am I going to get 1% better today? I do that by having to-do lists for myself. But however you're able to establish this, I'm going to get 1% better in your life, I think that can be massive, because it's compound interest. Like, everything compounds. And this is actually what I just wrote a blog post on. I talked about instant and delayed gratification and how they have a compounding effect either way. So with instant gratification, for instance, it compounds the pain that you're going to have later on from doing these instant gratification activities. The pain compounds and then hits you harder later, basically giving you interest on this quote-unquote hard tax, essentially. And if you delayed gratification, on the other hand, it compounds the pleasure that you're going to have for later, because you pay this hard tax already up front. I went in depth on this in the entire post, but that's the very brief overview. And I think the compound effect goes along with consistency. And if you can just show up every single day, do the correct things that are going to push you towards the goals that you want, that's going to compound over time. And just like lifting, where I can only do the bar, like bench 20 pounds on the bar for, I don't even know what that is, bench 65 pounds. And now I can bench very easily. I don't even know. I think I hit like 205 was my max a while ago. Mm-hmm. So you go from barely being able to do anything to having an entire huge gap. And it's just because you put the time and effort in and you were consistent. And that has the compounding effect for yourself, which is going to shoot you to high levels, which are going to achieve those goals or milestones.
Absolutely. I agree.
I've noticed with you as well, that you're fantastic with people. And you build relationships with people really well, in my opinion, and what I've seen. Would you like to speak on how you've built successful relationships with people and friendships and how you really maintain those friendships that you have?
Well, it's very kind of you to say, Jack. So thank you for that. I think a big thing for that is being extroverted, being willing to go out and have conversations with people. My mom at a young age said something to me. You don't have to be everybody's best friend, but you have to be kind to people. So being willing to go up to people, talk to them. As I'd mentioned previously, be vulnerable in certain situations. Be open about who you are, but don't show all your cards. As you'd said, you don't need to tell everybody your life story. I'll be honest, not everybody wants to hear it. But be kind. Not every situation you're going to be in. Not everybody wants to be your friend. But I really think that you can go out and just say, if you're sitting by yourself, go up to somebody and if they look approachable, say, hey, my name's Zach. How you doing? Or, my name's Jack. If I sit next to you. And just start those conversations. Have those conversations because you don't know where they can take you. I made it sound a lot easier than it actually is because you need to know yourself. I know myself. I'm very, very extroverted. I love talking to anybody. I'm just going to chat. I think I know when I need to stop talking. But one of my favorite things is when I go and play at a public course, getting paired up with random people, getting to know them over my 4-hour, 18-hole round, or even with being blessed with the position I'm in to work at the clubs that I'm at, getting to interact with membership has been absolutely incredible for me, put me in very special positions, but also has created friendships and professional relationships that I never expected. So being able to apply that in your own regard, even for the viewers, being able to apply that for yourselves is something that is massively important.
I think you can take a lot of these networking and job things to more of a social and friendship basis as well, which is just the worst that people can say to you is no or just nothing, especially if you're just going to go and try and introduce yourself or learn about other people. I think that's the differentiator for myself. It's a shift to becoming genuinely interested in what other people have to say and listening and learning from them rather than just spilling my story upon other people. A point that you made earlier was not everyone wants to hear your story, which is something that I learned a while ago. I remember I had some crazy events go on for me in my past, and I remember after that stuff happened, I just told a whole bunch of people. And I realized after a little while, not a lot of people want to hear about that. They don't care. Mm-hmm. And that was a tough lesson to learn, but it's one that is very valuable because if you can come from a standpoint of, I actually don't really need to tell a whole bunch of people about all the stuff that I'm doing. I just genuinely want to hear what they have to say, it's an interesting mindset shift, and it can be hard, honestly. I'm still struggling with it, and I'm working towards getting better. But when you just become genuinely interested in what other people have to say and what their stories are, you can learn things from them, and you can grow and establish these genuine relationships. It's something that I learned from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Fantastic book. I love that. I actually read the updated version, which was How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age, which was pretty cool. Yeah. But that's a fantastic book that I would recommend everybody read if they haven't read that one. I'll probably put a link to that in the resource section of my page and maybe a little blurb and whatnot on all about it. But yeah, I also noticed that smiling is huge at people. I started just smiling at people and just making it a point to where I want to smile at people and just show that I'm open to speaking with people. And usually whenever I smile at people, I get them to smile back, which always makes me feel a sense of accomplishment. Like I might not be actually talking to the people, but I'm somewhat making their day in a sense, because a lot of people just have their walk with their head down and they don't see a lot of stuff. And I think switching our mentality to becoming more positive and really trying to share these positive vibes and good things with other people, it helps you nourish these friendships. And that's what I've noticed, because a lot of people always told me that I was super negative, and I thought that I was positive for a while, but I didn't realize that my body language was crazy negative. I wouldn't look people in the eyes, and I would not smile at people, and I didn't have this actual positive mentality that I thought I did. I might have had it with myself, but whenever I switched to really trying to show people and be open, that's something that I say to myself all the time. Whenever I get nervous, I'll start stretching, or I'll cover myself up like this, how I am doing on the camera right here, showing you guys, where I'll close off my body language like this, and just telling myself, mouthing, like out loud a lot of the times, even if I'm in conversations with other people, I'll just mouth out, maybe not out loud, but mouth to myself, like open, and I'll just remind myself to just open up my posture. And as soon as I do that, just open and then breathe. If I can just take a second to breathe, I'm like, oh, I actually do like this. I'm perfectly fine. This is not going to kill you. You'll be okay. You're meeting a new friend. And I think those are a few things that have been massive for me.
Absolutely. And I think there's a massive, massive value placed on learning how to be an active listener. I think that's something that a lot of people, which isn't really a negative thing, but some people struggle with, is learning how to be engaged in a conversation, not just when can I speak next, but truly, what is this other person saying to me? What value does it bring to me? But also, what is the message they're trying to relay? You know, what is that information they're trying to give to me? What value does that have? And how do I present? For me, I always try and present a follow-up question to that. You know, how do I present a question of value? You know, I don't want a question out of left field. They're like, how does that relate? But how do I present a question of value that they're going to be like, yeah, absolutely. You know, an engaging question. So I think kind of the smiling, the head nods, the staying active in that conversation. But the biggest part for me is, how do I be an active listener? And that is a learned skill. Just because, you know, you may struggle with it now, being honest with yourself, like, hey, sometimes it's something that I struggled with for a little while, is I wanted to be like, okay, how can I relate to this person? Like, hey, like something I struggled with, I've been able to do a lot of really, really cool stuff. I mean, I'll be straightforward. I loved telling people about the cool stuff I've done. That came off as ego, as like, wow, this kid loves to talk about himself. And I learned, similar to what you talked about, not everybody wants to hear about that. You know, some people think that that's not really that cool, that you talk about yourself all the time. And I had trouble picking up on that for a little while. But what I learned now is, you know, sometimes it's cool to be sociable. It's cool to be open, but keep your cards tucked to your chest a little bit. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
Active listening is massive. That's something that I've learned. I've got a couple tips for that as well. The first one is just being present now. I've spent hours, crazy amounts of hours, meditating and trying to make sure that I'm present in this moment right now. And it's helped me a whole bunch with active listening, because you can, whenever you're present in this moment, it's easier to focus on exactly what is happening right now. And that helps you know what's actually going on. That's something that's huge for me, and something I've worked on for years at this point. And I'm getting a lot better. I think that's shown in the conversations that I'm being able to have with people. And the second most important tip that I can give for active listening is eye contact. When your eyes wander, your mind wanders. Now, there can be certain times where you stare at someone's eyes and you might kind of lose what you're thinking of. And it's okay to break eye contact every now and then, so you're not completely dazed the entire time, just staring into somebody's eyes. We've all been there at least one time.
Wow, Jack, your eyes are so beautiful. I'm just lost in them.
So to avoid that, you can break eye contact every now and then, but I would recommend trying to really focus on eye contact, because it also instills a sense of respect and dominance, I would say, in a conversation. If you can actually be present, be here, be actively listening, and showing the other people that you're actively listening through your body language, whether that's smiling or nodding and whatnot, like we mentioned. But I think eye contact is a point that is massively important.
Agreed.
I want to ask you here as well about overcoming failure, overcoming specifically the fear of failure. Because whenever you're applying for internships or these very cool experiences and jobs that you've had, there's got to be something that runs through your mind like, man, what if I don't make it? What if I don't get this? And I just want to hear any tips that you have to help people overcome this fear of failure.
Yeah. Fear isn't always a bad thing. People misconceive that. a little fear can be nervousness is not a bad thing let me rephrase. What nerves represent, it's because you care. I should say it like this. I don't believe in myself. I don't have a fear of failure as much as I used to. When I approach applying for these major internships, applying within my companies, when I first started them, that fear of failure ran my life. I'm like, I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm going to lose my capital. How am I going to pay this stuff back? This is going to be awful. These interns, I don't think I'm qualified for this. What are they going to tell me? And I don't think that way anymore. It's more so, this is how I started approaching it. There's a reason they're giving me the time of day. There's a reason I'm in this position. If I get to the interview stage, there's a reason that they see something in me, some sort of potential, some sort of opportunity that they see for me to provide them value. And that's my goal with it, is not just what can they provide me, but every time I walk into an interview, it's what value can I provide that country club, what value can I provide that company, what can I bring to their staff that differentiates me. And I think that's what got me over it, is I am special. I am unique, words of positivity, a positive mindset, which I didn't realize there's a massive value in. There's a huge value in that positive mindset. So walking into these interviews and stuff with I bring a lot to the table. I'm going to give it my all. And if I give it 100% and don't get it, I left it all on the table. There's nothing else I can do in that situation. So, if they come back with a no, that's tough. Let it be. The world's going to keep turning. I got to keep walking. I got to keep moving forward. And that continued forward progress is a massive thing for me. It's okay to feel those emotions you need to feel. Like, man, this darn. But always keep pushing forward. And I think realizing that every time I go in at one of these internships, when I go for it within my companies, learning from those mistakes, asking for feedback on maybe when I don't get it, like, hey, is there something I can improve on? Is there something that, didn't quite call to you or that didn't quite differentiate me from everyone else? Seeing what I could do differently really made me realize that I didn't have to be scared of failure, because it can also be a learning moment.
I like to view failure as feedback nowadays. And what another guest who I've had on this podcast, Austin, his definition of failure was not trying. And specifically, it's failure if you don't learn from the mistakes that you have. I think my definition of failure is just feedback. It doesn't really mean a lot of the stuff. It's just a platform or an opportunity for me to learn. I think that's a massive reframe, because that can get rid of the I'm super scared of this, because you can get these nerves that you have. And I think reframing that in your mind as excitement is massive, because it's the same feeling. Is this nervousness that you have is the same as excitement whenever you're like super jittery, and I don't want to say anxious, but anxious comes to mind as like more of like jittery and whatnot. It's the same thing as being nervous is the same thing as being excited. So I think reframing in your mind, I'm excited for this opportunity to potentially learn something, even if that means your entire business blows up in your face.
Yeah.
That's something that not necessarily on a huge scale, but this past summer I decided to start my own social media marketing agency. I basically just wanted to do SEO, search engine optimization for local businesses and whatnot. And I was just starting out, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I didn't really put in a crazy amount of time and effort behind the stuff, and sort of didn't really know what I was doing with it, which is fair. That was the first time that I ever started anything that had to do with it. But that got shut down. It was basically just a small thing over the summer that I kind of did on the side to try and learn some skills. And originally I thought it was a failure. I didn't like it. It wasn't cool. And I was a little annoyed at myself for trying stuff. But I realized whenever I was starting up this podcast and having to make a website for it, that I built a fantastic website for the marketing agency that I started up that was not very long. but I did learn how to build an amazing website. And whenever I had to build a website for this podcast, I knew what I was doing. So I think reframing this fear of failure and experiences that you've had to a more positive light is massive, because no matter what happens with this podcast or with the school that I'm going through and the tests that I'm taking, the businesses that I start, the relationships that I have, as long as you take something from that and, like you said, moving a step forward every single day towards your goals, you're gaining those skills and those experiences to drive you to the places that you want to go. And I think that's absolutely massive, and that's a big thing. Is fear of failure is huge, but making sure that you can really reframe your mindset to think about it from a different way that really serves you.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I'm a firm believer. I also heard this in an interview recently that I did where I don't believe weakness. I don't believe in weakness. Weakness means you can't get better at whatever you're struggling in. I'm a very, very, very firm believer in a growth opportunity. Now, there's some areas where big growth opportunities where you really, really struggle. I have a lot of stuff that I really struggle in. Be it math or science for me in a college perspective. Be it math classes or science classes where I need to put in extra work. Those are my growth opportunities. Now, there's a lot more of them, but everybody has those growth opportunities. There's nothing you can't conquer within that if you just apply yourself. And that applies to work, that applies to those internships, that applies to what you do in life. But if you take the approach, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, the words you speak over yourself become real. I come from a faith background. My mom told me that for years. The words you speak over other people and the words you speak over yourself, they come to reality. So I'm all about that positive mindset. And as I'd previously spoken on, I didn't really think that was such a big deal. Like telling myself, like, hey, you're gonna do well. For me, within golf, like swing thoughts and like my pre-swing thoughts. I'm for a believer. Like I don't want to have actual swing thoughts like within my swing, but of like a flow mentality with that. But my pre-swing thoughts, like, hey, all right, I know what I need to do. Let's execute. Next shot. If I don't get that one, next shot, let's execute that shot. But having that positive mindset going into whatever you want to do really differentiated it for me. And I started to see that positive progress, those positive gains. And I was like, wow, this is different. This is game changing for me. I think there's a great quote. I believe it's from Jack Nicklaus. And they asked him, I don't remember when this was. I don't remember who it was. I would love to give credit where it's due, but I cannot remember. He was asked, how many shots around do you hit that are perfect? And I believe what he said was out of every shot he hits in a round, he'll hit one or two that are the way he wanted to hit them. And I think that's perfect, for the viewers that are golfers. You can't hold yourself to ridiculous standards. You've got to let the game be fun. It is a very inherently very difficult game, and you've got to enjoy it. And that also applies to more than just golf. I think people are naturally your harshest critic. Your harshest critic is yourself. I'm naturally very difficult on myself. Jack, I'd imagine you are probably pretty tough on yourself too.
Very tough on myself. I don't hold other people to the standard that I hold myself to. Mm-hmm. And even whenever I hold people to a high standard, it's nothing close to how high I hold myself. It's almost a sense for myself of once I hit a standard that's really high, that's my new bottom level, and I want to trend upward to the next thing. So a good example of this for golf, I don't actually remember exactly what my best score or whatever best round ever is, but I remember I'd shoot whatever that score is, and then immediately next round it's like, all right, like this is where I'm at now. I want to be around there. I might not be perfect below that one or do better than that, but I want to be close. So whenever you'd have rounds, which this is what golf's going to do to you, where you shoot like an 85, which is really good, and then you go in the mentality of, I'm going to go, now I shoot 85s, but then you walk away with like a 99 or something crazy because you just completely blew up. you have to take a step back and be like, look, like you did really well and everything went well for you that one day.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do that again, but it's not the new normal. And that's something that I struggle with. That's a growth opportunity.
No, it's a growth
for
opportunity.
myself.
And yeah, things do go back to golf. Jack, I don't want to speak for you, but at least for me, I really do love the game. Like it's a lot of what I think about. It's a lot of what I want to do. It's something I'm very, very passionate about, as you know. I mean, Jack knows me very, very well. But, just because you have one off day, in our case, one bad round, that's not the new normal. Or even 2 bad rounds, 3 bad rounds. Hey, winter golf is tough. I tried to go out and play a few weeks ago in the morning between classes. It was like 34 and windy. Fun fact, not optimal time to play golf. No. It was a tough round. I think, actually I'm not going to make that public, but it was not a great round. And I still put it in my gin. It impacted it. Not the way the handicap went in the wrong direction. But it's, being a good steward of the game. You have to respect that, hey, next time we're going to be a little bit smarter about when we play, when it's not so cold and we can feel the club in our hands. But also, this isn't the new norm. We go at it, and then the next round I went out and shot more so what I shoot, which is, for me, my handicap, mid to high 70s, which I had a blast. And I have fun. That's the big thing. Have fun what you do. For me, have fun playing golf. It's a stressful game. It's really easy to get down on yourself. Have fun, lifting in life. Life is short. Go enjoy it. You can spend a lot of time getting down on yourself over the past decisions you've made, over all the stressors in your life with school, with work. Go out, go enjoy life, go have some fun. Because if not, everything's going to catch up to you really quickly, and you don't want that to happen.
Well said. You gotta have fun. That's something that I've learned as well. Where you can do things that are hard, that are fun for you, but you should also have times where you can just do things that are fun for yourself. You obviously have to find a balance where you're just not doing a crazy amount of fun things all the time that could potentially be detrimental to the way that you're trying to go in your life in terms of reaching milestones or goals. But you gotta have times in your life where you're gonna have some fun, whether that's hanging out with friends. I don't think that it necessarily means should be detrimental to everything, like I've said, but just having times where maybe it has to do with another milestone or another goal that you have. Not everything has to be unbelievably stressful in your life, and if it is, you can take a step back, try and figure out what your actual desires and your goals and milestones are, and see if you're able to take a different approach on things. And that's something that I think about a lot, honestly, whenever I struggle with stuff. But I think it just comes down to, don't take life too seriously. Have a good time and just move forward.
And I think that's perfect, because as one of my biggest core values is live a life without regret. Living without regret is a huge deal with me. And that actually helped me get over my fear of failure. Putting everything on the table, making sure that whether it was with my relationships, whether it was with my reaching out for that internship I was scared to reach out for, whether it was hearing the word no, it was making sure I left everything on the table, making sure that when I work, I work hard, I give it 110%, but also when I'm relaxing, I have that balance, and I learn how to enjoy life and have a little bit of fun. And I think for other people, learning how to live without regret and learning how to enjoy that time, the time that you spend, is massive, because that'll also help you learn how to cope with burnout, which I think is one of the biggest, fear-inducing things for most people, because I think once burnout hits, a lot of people don't know how to deal with it. My mom is she's an executive coach, so I've grown up my entire life learning about burnout, how to cope with it, and different mechanisms to, when you start feeling that stress and you're starting to feel yourself wanting to quit, how do you get yourself to lock back in? So I think from a different approach, I think it'd be fun to go over how do we lock back in? Because it's final season right now. I personally, I'll admit, I'm struggling with a little bit of burnout with some of my calculus stuff. I'm like, this is not fun anymore. It wasn't fun in the first place, but I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't really have the time to be in that mindset. So learning how do I cope with burnout? How do I take a second, reassess my values, realign, and say, let's lock back in. I have my final tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. And I'm like, let's lock back in. Let's get into it. We're gonna knock this thing out of the park, and then we'll be done. But I think that'd be a fun little. Maybe we'll knock that out in another podcast.
Yeah, in another podcast, or I want to talk to you about that because that's interesting.
Yeah, we can.
I just feel like it doesn't serve you. It's like it's not something that you should think about or put your time and energy into because it's technically taking away from something that you like or you're talking about. I don't know. It's just it's not that I don't think that's real because I'm sure that it is real because I've seen other people do it, but I just don't think that it's beneficial to even spend your time on. Same with saying I'm tired or things like this. I don't like that because I know that I can do things while I'm tired.
I agree.
I know that I can do things whenever I don't feel like it.
I agree, but I'm of a different mindset. If I don't handle it now, it's going to get worse and worse until I cannot physically tackle it. I've had my burnout get that bad. I'll admit it. Mine was with baseball. It became a job. It got so bad I quit my junior year of high school. And I loved it. I played travel ball for years. I played for baseball for 13 years of my life. And I never gave myself time to relax. I said, I'll just keep pushing. I worked out 6-7 days a week for 2 to 3 hours. I was in the cage for 3 hours a week, always working on hitting. I played for a phenomenal travel ball team. I played against some really, really cool people. A lot of guys who are in the minor leagues now. Some incredible experiences, a lot of great stories. But just the more and more I played, the more I kept pushing myself, the bleaker and bleaker my outlook got on the game because it just got more and more frustrating because I never learned how to cope with it. And I just got more frustrated with it. I never handled what I needed to handle because you were talking about, you can still work while you're tired. But if you never get some sleep, at some point you're going to pass out. And that's where I hit with my game. And I just said, I'm done. I quit. So I sold all my equipment. And I just never looked back. I love the game. Baseball's a phenomenal game. Every once in a while I'll go to the cage, go hit some dingers. But it's at that point in my life, I wish I'd handled my burnout earlier so I could have given myself a senior season. But everybody handles it differently. There's no regret there. Maybe a little bit, but that was my life. There's a lot to be learned there. And I learned what I needed to learn there. So at the end of the day, that lesson was taken away. Do I really regret it? Not massively.
Well, cool. I think that's a different perspective that I've heard on burnout for sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just don't think that's beneficial. So it's not something that I should worry about and whatnot, especially in the state that I'm at right now with things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it doesn't serve me to think about the stuff. But I mean, yeah, in the event that down the road, I think that's a big thing is just playing it out so you don't even set yourself up ever to be in a situation where that could even be the case. It's like, let alone even thinking about it, but just having the maturity and the forward thinking enough to just think about not necessarily driving yourself in a direction that's going to put you there, if that makes sense.
I see that perspective 100%. Sometimes you can't see it coming is my only thing. That was my thing is I never saw it coming and it hit me like a train. And I love that, and I think we should dive into that another time. Because I know we're running out of time, and I think it'd be a really cool conversation. Because I love your perspective, and I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah,
I think it's a completely different perspective that I haven't approached before. So there's no wrong, there's no right. That's the fun part.
I think that's the big thing too. Is change my perspective.
Yeah.
If another thing too is in the event that I have a time where I'm burnt out or whatnot, and you happen to have answers that's going to help me not have this happen.
No.
Even if I'm 20 years old, even if my perspective or whatever is wrong, or if it's not perfect in that sense, and maybe the stuff will happen, you have the answer that's going to help me. I'll take it, man. I will gladly learn how to prevent this stuff even more if I already don't think that it's, I don't want to say real, because that's not
the right word.
It's not the right word. But if I don't think that it serves me now to think about, and I'm already working on planning so that none of that stuff ever happens, but you just have an even better perspective to help me with it.
Why not?
Why not?
And I think you have a phenomenal point there because that's how I approach a lot of those situations. I'm 20. I'm young. I have a lot of living to do. You know, my opinions on stuff and the way I approach things aren't fully formed. You know, if you have a better way of going about it, propose it to me. Change my mind. It's that simple, because it's not concrete. My beliefs, I believe what I believe, and they are strong beliefs. But, you know, I want to hear people out. I want to hear what they have to say, because, you know, I think so many people, the value that other people bring is offering those unique perspectives, whether it comes to business, golf, life, religion. There's so many other unique systems that come from the background that people have that I've never heard before. And I think it's super, super cool to hear these out. And, you know, I can adjust mine accordingly. And, you know, how does that better my state of living? So I like that.
I love it. I'll leave you with this one quote: be open to everything and attached to nothing. So whatever other people are telling you about, any of their opinions, hear them out. Doesn't mean that you have to be attached to these opinions. You already have your own opinions. In the event that you like the opinion that they've given you, cool. You can make it your opinion or transform it into your psyche and what you're thinking. In the event that you don't agree with it, you don't think it's a cool perspective, not attached to it. Move forward. Just hear them out. I think that's a big thing. That's my takeaways. Just hear them out, hear everybody else out, have fun with it. Have conversations with people, and just have a good time. Be a good person.
Enjoy it, but take it as a grain of salt. Figure out, how does it apply to you? Take what you need and take it out. Take what you need and figure out how it applies to you.
Exactly.
Jack,
Awesome.
thanks for having me on today.
Of course. I really appreciate you, Zach. And there you have it, folks. We hope you enjoyed another episode of Exceptional Undergrads. If you found inspiration in today's episode, head over to our website, exceptionalundergrads.com, for our show notes and resources from all of our episodes. We're always looking for new undergrads to feature on our episodes. If you think you are or know anybody else who's an exceptional undergrad, tell them to visit the Apply Here page on our website. And as always, stay exceptional.